This is the fifth in a series of resources that consider supply and demand. Part 1 looks at the law of demand, defining the law and providing the context from which we derive the law. Part 2 of the series considers the law of supply, providing the same analysis as in Part 1. Part 3 combines the laws of supply and demand to find the point of equilibrium and considers what happens if either quantity supplied or demanded change. Part 4 of the series looks at price floors and ceilings, which are government-imposed constraints placed on the prices at which goods may be sold. Part 5 inspects those factors in the marketplace which may change the overall demand for a particular good. Part 6 considers what can change the overall supply of a good. The final resource in the series inspects the interplay of changes in demand and supply and determines what would be the overall effect on the equilibrium price and quantity supplied. Certain factors can change demand for a good. This resource will inspect some of those factors, including consumers' income, the price of substitute and complementary goods, and other factors. We will then consider what happens when the demand changes, and look at the overall effect on equilibrium price and equilibrium quantity. There are certain types of goods consumers buy when their income is lower, and other types of goods that are consumed at higher incomes. A normal good is one whose demand increases as income increases. These are often thought of as luxury items. Examples include Kobe beef, luxury cars, and airplane travel. If the demand for a good decreases as income increases, it is referred to as an inferior good. Examples of inferior goods include ramen noodles, peanut butter, and public transportation. Therefore, as income levels increase or decrease, the demand for both normal and inferior goods change. Another factor that can affect demand for a good is the price of a substitute. A substitute good is something that can be purchased in lieu of a good, yet fulfills the same need and purpose. For example, we could purchase beef instead of chicken, or we could drink Coca-Cola instead of Pepsi. So if the price of a substitute changes, that will definitely affect the demand for a specific good. A similar idea is a complementary good. While a substitute is something we purchase instead of a good, a complement is something we purchase to go along with a good. So if we buy peanut butter, we probably will buy jelly to go with it. If we get hot dogs, we probably want rolls to have the hot dogs on. If we buy cookies, we need to have milk to wash it down. Because of this, changing the price of complementary goods will affect demand. Of course, other factors can change demand. Consumer preferences change. There simply is not much demand in modern times for whalebone corsets, buggy whips, or even tube-based televisions. No amount of change in the price of those products will generate demand for the goods. Another, more insidious factor that affects demand is the consumer's expectations about the future price of a good. A good example is consumer electronics, like the newest version of a cell phone. When the product is first released, the price is high, but so is demand because some people want to always have the newest, shiniest electronics. After that initial burst of sales, however, demand drops. People are not willing to pay the high price, and they also know from past experience that the price will drop soon. So in the present, demand lowers because the consumer base expects the price to drop in the relatively near future. As we saw in previous resources, a change in quantity demanded results when price fluctuates. But what happens if the entire demand curve shifts? This is a change in demand and is caused by some factor other than price, such as the ones we were just describing. But how does this affect the equilibrium price and quantity? Let's find out. Suppose there is a serious drought in the states that produce oranges. This will cause the price for orange juice to increase. This in turn will increase the demand for substitutes for orange juice, such as apple juice. Because the demand for apple juice increases, the entire demand curve for apple juice shifts to the right, but the supply of apple juice remains fixed. Once the market settles to the higher demand, a new equilibrium is struck. The equilibrium quantity has increased, as has the equilibrium price. But what happens if demand decreases? Suppose now that the drought affecting the orange growing states also hits the states that produce potatoes. With the lower supply of potatoes, the price of potatoes and potato-based goods like French fries will increase. Because the price of fries increases, products like ketchup, which are complements of French fries, will see a decrease in demand. This decrease in demand for ketchup will move the demand curve for ketchup to the left. Again, we must wait until the dust settles. Once equilibrium is established, the price and quantity will have both changed. When demand decreases, both the equilibrium price and equilibrium quantity decrease. To summarize, there is a direct correlation between the change in demand and the change in equilibrium price and quantity. If demand increases, so does the equilibrium price and the equilibrium quantity. If demand decreases, then the equilibrium price and equilibrium quantity both decrease. What happens if supply changes? Stay tuned for the next resource in this series.